for the Green Death is: when a man is found dead with his skin glowing green in an abandoned mine, it's not long before the doctor, Joe Grant, and unit head to Wales to investigate. And while the doctor becomes suspicious of the nearby Global Chemicals factory and its mysterious owner, Joe gets trapped underground where she finds old mine tunnels crawling with deadly and sinister giant maggots. An environmental story is often referred to as the one with the maggots. As silly as mutated maggots are, they do have an impact on this story. I personally like to call them the precursor to tremors. That is mainly because that is what they look like. These maggots are quite large, about the size of a small dog, and are very vicious. They look very well done. It is basically foam wrapped in rubber bands and layers of plastic. They look slimy, and their mouths are very scary. Unlike the Drashings from Carnival of Monsters, they did not use real animal skulls for the maggots. Did not. And even though their skulls aren't real, their teeth still give this scary look and fierce look. The maggots are creepy. However, their evolved form into a fly isn't that creepy. The fly, which is quite larger and probably the size of a large dog, looks creepy, but it's just performed not well. When we see the fly, it looks like it's being pushed over a rocky hill like some cheap puppet. Then when it's chasing our heroes, it's shown like old school horror films with rear screen projection behind the actors, but instead with blue screen. And yes, the fly itself looks creepy, but seeing it fly looked like it was just lifeless, like dead weight on a wire. There are other moments of blue screen in this story that still stick out like a sore thumb. It seems that putting objects in front of a blue screen is still cheap at this time. However, it still sells the idea that they are in a certain area. You just can tell they're added in. The main villain that is creating the waste that is mutating the maggots is this sentient supercomputer called the Biomorphic Organizational Systems Supervisors, or BOSS. The BOSS wants to control the world. BOSS looks like what one would expect a computer to look like in 1973. A large room filled with reel-to-reel computer systems, large circuit boards, light switches, buttons, and a central control desk for someone to operate in. And finally, a very large screen. But this screen is different. Instead of an image of a face or avatar, it is just a red screen with sound waves that fluctuate when BOSS speaks. And BOSS is beautifully performed by actor John Dirth. BOSS is actually quite amazing, I have to admit. However, I can't help but feel a giant supercomputer wanting world domination is a bit cheap. It is something that I can enjoy, and it does take away. It doesn't take away anything from the story, nor hinder it. It just feels like a cheap idea to me, but I still enjoyed it. This story is also known for being Joe Grant's last story. She falls in love with the biologist Professor Clifford Jones, and they get engaged by the end. This series has gotten better with marrying off its companions. When it was with Susan back in the Dalek Invasion of Earth, it felt forced and there was no chemistry between the characters. But this time, when we get to Joe, the two characters get plenty of screen time together, thus seeing and believing they are falling in love with each other. However, because, with these stories that have rushed endings, the engagement does feel very sudden at the end, but she accepts it. It's a little hard to swallow at first, but you eventually do accept it yourself. Maybe you accept it like Captain Mike Yates, shocked at first, sad, but then happy for her. But I'm sure you will feel like the Doctor, happy for her, but sad to see her go because you begin to feel lonely and wish she never met the biologist and wish she never left and just stayed with you to work. Jo has been a great companion. At first, I thought she was just some ditzy girl. I didn't like her at all when I first saw her. She was not a suitable replacement for Liz Shaw. But by the end of her first story, she grew on me. We got to see that she is a smart girl and can handle her on her own. She just has this ditzy personality. She eventually helped to move the plot along, save the day, and become an actual companion. I love Jo, and will miss her dearly. A bonus feature on the special edition DVD has a 2-part episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures, where Jo returns and you find out that she traveled the world with her husband and had 7 children and has 12 grandchildren. And number 13 is on the way. He'll be a bit dyslexic, but he will be an excellent swimmer, as the Doctor says. And you find out that even though the Doctor never visited her, even though he visited Sarah Jane like twice in the Revival series, he always watched her from a distance, and he actually tells her he is proud of her. These 2 episodes made me cry and happy at the same time. It is great to find out Jo has a happy and adventurous life, and that the Doctor keeps an eye on all his companions. But he still hasn't visited Susan. It pisses me off. Go see Susan! I give this serial 4.5 stars out of 5. And thus endeth Series 10 of Doctor Who. It has been a great year, and each season gets better and better. I can't wait to see what will happen next. To end this review, I want to leave you with a question, a liar's paradox the Doctor gives the boss to confuse it. The question is, if I were to tell you the next thing I say would be true, but the last thing I said was a lie, would you believe me?